Today's the day that I'm leaving Arch Linux. I had the USB stick in my hand to wipe the file system and install the new operating system for my brother and give it away. But before I did that, I got a surprising amount of nostalgia and melancholy in me. And I was surprised by these feelings, so I thought this was significant. So I figured I would do just one more video from the Arch Linux system, one more walkthrough. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I've built it, the reasons why I've built everything this way, how I set it up, basically what's going through me as I'm leaving this operating system now and moving on to something else, albeit for maybe a temporary time. Let's dive in. I'm going to show you exactly how everything works. So yes, my Arch Linux system. If you've been following me for a while, then you've seen me use this system for the past 14 months or so has been produced on this Arch Linux system. So if we do the stat of the root file system, you will see that the birth of this system is 24th of 2024 and on the 27th of August of that year. And as I'm writing this, we are now in 2025 on the 18th of November. So yeah, that is 14 months. I'm so bad at math, but something like that. So a little bit over a year I've been running this, and I'll tell you also the story why I built this system in the first place. When I started my DevOps engineering journey, I got a very thin, low quality, low spec MacBook from the company that I was working for, and that didn't really work out very well. I mean, it worked, but I couldn't really run containers or anything. So I decided to switch to Linux then. So I was daily driving Linux, starting with Ubuntu, trying all of these different distros, and eventually, obviously in this journey, you inevitably come across Arch. And I also had a mentor in that company who was daily driving Arch. And he is basically the first person that I met who was working with a complete keyboard-centered workflow. So he was running a window manager, something I hadn't seen before. He was running i3 at the time. He did everything in Vim, and I was just very impressed with how fast he could switch between things and how he worked. And when I saw that, it was like, okay, that's what I want. It was very inspiring to me because I recognized the craftsmanship in that. It's not because it's flashy or cool. No, I saw that. I mean, I highly respected his technical capabilities, but I saw how this workflow made him the person that he was, the craftsmanship that this shows to the world. So that was my entry towards Arch. And then in my free time, I spent a lot of time learning Arch, building it. I made a few mistakes along the way. He is also the mentor who really kicked my ass, because when I first showed up with my new Arch system and was super proud, the first thing he asked me is, did you encrypt your system? And I said, I don't understand. What do you mean with encrypting your system? I was a noob. And he kicked my ass. He got really mad at me. And that was the right thing. Like, I needed that shock. I needed that sort of, I will never forget that moment. And this is also what I teach my students, that you should never, ever run an unencrypted system. So he really instilled some good practices in me. So that was my journey towards Arch. And then I worked at that company for a few years. And then I left because I was going to work for a consultancy. And I doubled my salary in the process. And in that consultancy, I could buy a MacBook. I could get a MacBook. And I did that because, I mean, my Arch system was working, but occasionally I would run into problems, and I wasn't as skilled back then as I am now. So sometimes things didn't work out as well. And with the consultancy, I was going to be working for many different clients, right? I was going to be working in many different environments, like Microsoft environments, different environments. So I was getting a little bit, like in the previous job, I could just have my own little world. I could do my thing, and I was only working in one environment. But with the consultancy, suddenly I'm expected to be up and running very quickly in many different environments. So then Arch Linux felt a bit scary, and it's a skill issue. Like right now, I have no problem. I wouldn't have any problems doing that. So that's when I went to Mac for a few years, and I daily drove Mac for a few years. I was tinkering with Linux, And I was, of course, running it on my servers in my home lab, but I wasn't using Linux as a daily driver for a few years then. And then as my technical skills grew and as as my career evolved, I really started missing Arch Linux. I really started missing this feeling of being your own system administrator, like being in complete control over the system you built and knowing exactly how everything works. And with Mac is great. It just works, but it started to feel too easy, right? I didn't have that joy of computing anymore, like working with a computer, because to me, like maybe I'm a masochist, but there is joy in me when something breaks and I spend a little bit of time and I fix it, and I understand another new component of the system that I built that I didn't understand before. So usually when things break, then I learn from that, and I enjoy that. So I've been running this system for 14 months now, well over a year. And let me just show you what the system is comprised of. Here we go. So my system obviously is running Arch Linux, and I am running Hyprland on Wayland, obviously. And the system has a 9950 AMD CPU with 32 cores, and the system has a 9950X CPU and a NVIDIA 4090 GPU, 64 gigabytes of RAM, a little bit of swap, and that's it. So a very beefy system that I built so that I can run big Kubernetes clusters, work a lot with containers, test out things. So it was built for my DevOps workflow, right? And it has served me very well. And there are a few reasons why I am feeling so nostalgic about leaving this system now. First of all is I have been successfully running my entire business from this system, my content creation, everything that I've been doing for the past 14 months has been done on this system. And in those 14 months, I have grown considerably, like as a person as well. Like 14 months ago, I had just started my school community. The first members were coming in and I had no clue what I was doing. And now this has grown to a very successful six-figure business that I work on with so much pleasure and joy every single day. And I get to help people become DevOps engineers every single day. And it's like a dream come true. The Arch system is connected to that experience. And secondly, as I was building it out, I recorded everything because I wanted to teach my students how to do this. So in KubeCraft, there is a complete Linux course that will teach you how to learn Linux. And after you have done the basics, then we go into our Arch Linux installation. So I have the full complete course where you learn how to build the system that I have basically, and how I did it and why I did it. And when you now search KubeCraft for Arch, here we see Arch of Triumph. So you get all of these people who have installed installation, like first post from my Arch installation. So Arch installation, Arch Linux, just finished the course and successfully installed my system. So, and you can see there are 332 posts about this. So I have literally helped people, hundreds of people, build their own Arch Linux system. And it brings me so much joy that because I get so much pleasure out of running my own system, that I could give that to other people as well, right? I did that on this system, and that's why it feels very nostalgic to me, I think, and why I feel reluctant to leave it right now. So that is the emotional aspect of it, I suppose. But let's just take a look at why I think this is such a good system. So I designed this as I run my life with complete minimalism in mind. When I set out to create my Arch Linux system, like for the first time years ago, I had no clue what I was doing. Like I followed the Arch wiki, but I didn't really understand what was going on. So everything starts, of course, with your file system. So if I do lsblk, then you will see that I have a 2 terabyte SSD drive, and I created logical volumes on that. And obviously everything is encrypted. So you will see that I have a LUKS container here, and in there I have my logical volumes. In there I have my swap and my root and my home. So I like to separate my root file system and my home file system. And the reason for that is that this way I can easily expand my home directory. As you see, I am not using the complete, all of the space that I that I have available on my drive. I didn't allocate everything. There's like 400 gigabytes that I didn't allocate just because I wanted to experiment with growing the file system, etc. And this way, I could easily just add another disk and just expand the file system to that disk, and I would not have any problems swapping out disks or anything like that. So that's how I designed the file system layout. Obviously, also LUKS encrypted. So if you steal this PC, it's completely useless to you because you can't access my files or anything. So that's where it started. And that is all configured, and you learn how to do this in the course. And then the next thing is, how am I going to design the actual, like with Arch, you get a very minimal set of packages. You get your kernel, a few packages you need to run your system, but even the sudo command is not installed when you first boot up Arch, right? Or when you install it. So it literally has only what you need to have a running TTY. Because of that, I became very conscious of what packages I am putting there. So if you check out my PS3 now, you will see that there is relatively little running here. So everything starts with systemd. So obviously Arch uses systemd, and the world has moved on. If you're still holding on to sys5 init, then we need to have a chat. But systemd is where it's at. Because systemd is basically the nuts and bolts of the system, I had this goal of, if I can do it with systemd, I will do it with systemd. So for example, many people, or when you install a distro, then very often it includes Network Manager. So with your NMCLI. Well, that is completely unnecessary if you know how to work with systemd. That's one example. So we'll get into that. But if we take a look at my PS3 here, all we see is my Alacrity, so my terminal emulator, my Bluetooth daemon, Chrome is some processor for Chrome, my Cloud Drive UI, so this is my Synology sync, that's my Synology file system that is automatically being synced. Containerd for running containers, dbus, Docker, and IWD for switching, for connecting over Wi-Fi. And then you have my login shell, which is running Wayland, and my apps. So this is Obsidian that's running here, and my Waybar, etc. Then we have Polkit, Rootkit, CD, SSHD, and that's it. And for all of the rest is just systemd required packages to run my system, and Vivaldi, my browser. So it's very minimal, and I know exactly what each of these processes do and why they're there. And that is why I love this so much, that everything is there because I put it there and I understand what it's doing. So I completely designed this with this philosophy in mind, that constantly checking PS3 and seeing what is this and why is it running here and why does it do that. And in the course, I actually go through that process every single time. And as the PS3 grows, as we go from a blinking cursor to on the screen to a fully functional system that you see here, I explain in depth, like very, very elaborately, what is going on and why it's going on. So I really like to go deep with this because I want to understand my own system. So this is the philosophy that I had in mind. For that, like one example then is the networkd. So if we check the network CTL list, this is just interacting with systemd directly. There's no need for NMCLI if you just configure your your network with systemd. So if I do ls etc systemd, then you will see that I have my networkd.conf and my network directory like this. So you see my network directory, it contains my wireless network configuration, and that's it. If you just do it that way, there's no need to have that NMCLI package, right? You can just do that with systemd. The same thing for resolve CTL. So I configured my DNS with resolve CTL. Like very, very, very simple. And that's systemd resolved. So if I do cat etc resolve.conf, instead of like manually editing that file, I will just let systemd handle this. So here you see this is actually managed by systemd resolved, do not edit. So anything that can be done by systemd, I've done with systemd. Likewise, cron, which cron, you will not see cron on my system. And you should not be running cron tab anymore. You should be running systemd timers. So that is the philosophy. If it can be done with systemd, it should be done with systemd. And I can teach you how to do that. So with that in mind, this is how I designed my system. When I had basically the encrypted file system set up, everything, all of the required things for systemd and managing everything with systemd, then came the decision, okay, how am I actually going to make stuff appear on my screen, right? And at that time, I was thinking of Sway or Hyprland, and I was pretty much attracted to Sway because it's stable. And as you see, my system is extremely minimal. Like I have an extremely small way bar in the bottom. I don't hardly ever use that. I just need to, if I want to, just reference it. I don't want any distractions, no animations. It is just extremely simple. And it is designed for optimal focus, minimal distraction, and extreme speed of work. So I can just navigate around, do what I want, and not be distracted by anything. And that is how I designed it. So Hyprland, in that sense, is actually overkill. Like I could have easily done this with Sway, and Sway is more established, it is like Hyprland is created and maintained by one guy. Sway has a bigger community. I don't know, but I did go for Hyprland because I just wanted to try it, right? So I tried Hyprland, and I've been running Hyprland for the entire time, together with Cosmic. Like the great thing when you build your own system like this, I can just exit this session and boot up Cosmic and just run Cosmic. So I've really liked seeing Cosmic progress. I've been trying it on and off, but the main bread and butter has been Hyprland, and that has been a nice experience. But I could have just as easily done all of this with Sway. Like all I want is to basically, when I start my system, I want my browser in tab 1, Obsidian in workspace 2, and my terminal in 3, etc. So I have a bit of a system of where I want my stuff to be, so I always know where it's at. But as long as I can do that, I'm a happy camper. I have done my part in rising and creating beautiful systems when I was a junior, and yeah, honestly, I think it's just a waste of time and a huge distraction. It's just mental masturbation. You think you're doing something productive, but you don't. And I don't recommend doing it. All of the pros that I know, like the highly senior ones, they are just running base configs of either Hyprland, i3, or GNOME. Like one of my most respected senior friends, Rio, he is just running GNOME, almost no configuration. And that is some I have also arrived at, like very minimal, no colors, optimized for speed and focus, and that's it. So that's a pattern I've noticed, that the real pros, they don't run these super hyped RISE systems. And I mean, if you enjoy it as a creative activity, of course, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but don't see that as a useful, productive activity that's actually going to benefit you in your career as a Linux, DevOps, Kubernetes engineer. So Hyprland has been working very well for me. And for content creation, obviously, I'm using OBS, just running OBS natively, and it's working really well. And that is basically the nuts and bolts of my system. Everything is systemd, Hyprland with a very minimal config. And of course, there is my dev container workflow. So the thing is, like, which kubectl? I'm a Kubernetes engineer, but I don't have kubectl installed on my system. Like, this is just the base system, but otherwise everything happens in containers. So if I go to my home lab repo, then what I do is every system that I build, every system that I have has a dev container. So this is a repository for my home lab, and it is now going to download the image, and it's going to create a separate system that I work in. So now it's cloning my dot files into that repository or into that container. And when it creates that container, now a large series of scripts are going to be running, managed through Chemois and Mies. which are going to be installing all of the packages that I want. So in this case, you see LazyVim, Git, Node, FCF, ripgrep, NeoVim. Everything is now being installed. And if I now do devpod SSH, I can now enter my home lab container. And if I then open my my readme.md, for example, now we will see that Vim is now going to automatically create my entire system, my entire editor. Everything is going to be configured just as I like it, with my color scheme, with the extensions that I want, with the configuration that I want. So my actual environment, my actual dev environment is completely portable. So I can run this anywhere in the world. I can run this in a browser. Any system that has a container environment, a container runtime, I can work in. And that is my workflow now. And I've worked very hard to build this and to create this, and it's working extremely well for me. So all of my actual work is done completely in Git repositories with dev containers in containerized environments. So when I leave this system, there's actually hardly any data that I need to move, because my home directory basically is a series of repos, which I've backed up. And then I have my own personal files, which are all in a system that I call system 0. So if I do system 0, you see that there's a directory structure here based on Johnny Decimal. Johnny Decimal is based on the Johnny Decimal system to organize your life. Buy his stuff. This man is amazing. I'm not going to give it away for free, because he needs to be paid for what he does. This is an amazing man, an amazing system, and this is how I organize my life, basically. And all of those files are being backed up to my Synology, so literally I can just wipe my system, download this, have my container runtime, and I can be productive. And again, this whole dev container workflow that you just saw, all of that is also being taught in KubeCraft here in the DevOps OS. So here we have the dev containers course, and you can learn exactly how to set this up from scratch. And you get my dot files, everything, the templates are there. So you can have this containerized workflow that will work anywhere in the world. And that is basically the architecture design of my system. So systemd, encrypted file system, and a container runtime to do my work. Because here I have my kubectl installed, I have everything I need, my editor, etc. But when I'm done with this project, I just delete the container and we're golden. So that is the main architecture of my system and why I love it so much. So what's going to happen now? So I bought a framework laptop, and I have done a what do you call it? A kickoff of these video series that I am currently producing. And the first video in that series will be linked somewhere in the screen so that you can see what's actually going on. But in short, I am wiping this system. My laptop is going to arrive anytime soon. In the meantime, I'm just going to be working on my Minis forum that I also made a video about, which you can find linked here. I'm using that as a daily driver for a little while. And I'm going to be installing Fedora Silverblue. Well, actually not Silverblue. I'm going to be installing the Cosmic version of this. So you have the Fedora Atomic desktops. These are what I'm going to be running a Atomic desktop. This is a immutable OS. So the root file system is read only, and I'm very excited about this. I want to learn more about this kind of stuff. Also because it fits my philosophy of a stateless workstation so well. So I'm going to be running the Cosmic Atomic on my Minis forum for a while until my framework arrives, move to that, and really test this sort of, like, as you can tell, I architected this to be a stateless workstation so that my workflow is completely portable and I can run anywhere in the world. But I haven't really tested it. So this is what I'm going to be testing now to move my Arch workflow to a different OS, a different distro, a different environment, a different machine, see how smooth that process goes. And I'm just going to do it the hard way by pulling the plug, wiping it, and see how well I can reproduce everything. So that is what's going to happen next. And when my framework arrives, I'm going to move to that. And I also ordered a framework desktop. And when that one arrives, then my plan is to rebuild Arch again, because I've been playing with the immutable OS. It's great, but I'm already missing that kind of level of control and mastery over your system, because that's what it's all about. Like, if you can do what I have shown you in my videos, in this video, like building a system, architecting it with a clear path, a clear goal, implementing that, and then fixing things when things break, like that is mastery to me. There are millions of people who are much better at Linux than me. I'm not saying that I am the best Linux user in the world, but I do feel that I have mastered the running of your own personal system on Arch Linux. I have mastered that, and that also translates to my professional capabilities with Linux, because most of the stuff that I run into with Linux problems, file systems, formatting issues, everything I've learned by creating and building my Arch Linux system. So when I teach my students to go from 0 to Kubernetes engineers, the first thing I tell them is learn Linux, and I force them to create an Arch Linux system, because that's where I learned so much. And every day I run into things that I learned there. So that is my philosophy of teaching there. It's working very well. Like, we're landing jobs every single week. We had a couple of good wins in the community. Here, 10K views. Let me see how my AWS Home Lab helped me land a fully remote SRE role. Job offer and accepted it. And so achievements in October. So there are definitely jobs being landed all the time just by doing this sort of progression. And it's working well. So I do miss that feeling already on the immutable OS. But I'm planning to rebuild Arch Linux when I get my framework desktop. So that's what's going to happen next. But I'm also very excited to go somewhere else. And that's the thing. When I realized that I had some nostalgia, some feelings about leaving Arch Linux, it was an indicator to me that, oh, I'm actually getting a little bit too attached to things here. And I'm a Buddhist. So in Buddhist philosophy, attachment is the root of suffering. All suffering comes from attachment and clinging to things. So the very fact that I was clinging to this Arch system is already something that I need to pay attention to. Likewise, it does also, I have built this identity around myself of a Linux user. I'm always saying Arch, by the way, Arch, Arch, Arch. And that is an identity and a sense of brand that I am creating. And it's always good to not to get too serious about yourself with these things. And when you get too attached to something, then that's the sign that you actually need to detach yourself from that for a little while. And that's why I realized when I got these emotions, because I'm usually very stoic and very calm about things, I was like, why do I have these feelings about leaving my Arch system? Why are these feelings so strongly? Why are these feelings so strong? And that's why I'm making this video, to sort of talk myself through that process as well. But it's an attachment to that, and also a sense of identity. So there's an interesting tension here where I built my system to be completely stateless, and I want it to be completely portable. But at the same time, I want to be clinging to this one OS and this one thing that I built. And goes entirely against that whole philosophy. So there's some interesting tension going on here. And I usually don't dream, but last night I had a dream where I was sitting in a barber's chair, and I'm as you know, I have a beard, long hair, and I am very careful with who gets to touch my beard in terms of barbers and such. I've had bad experiences where my beard got completely ruined by barbers. So I'm very careful with that, and I usually just do it myself. And in the dream, I was like, yeah, just trim the edges and like shave the skin around. And in the dream, I sat in the chair, and for some reason, like this is how dreams work, right? But for some reason, I didn't realize that he was actually shaving off my entire beard. And at the end, it was like, what the hell, man? You shaved off my entire beard. What's going on? And why did you do that? And then in the dream, I walked away. I felt the wind on my face, and I've shaved my beard before. And it's always an interesting experience when you've had a beard for years and you shave it off completely, you're clean shaving again, you feel the wind on your skin. You don't feel that when you have a beard. And I could feel that feeling in the dream. And it was like, yeah, well, like it's gone now. Like there's nothing I can do. Sense of resignation. And I've like for the past 3 days, I've been preparing this move away from Arch Linux to a different system. And it's interesting that it's coming in my dreams as well. And also, like there's something very beautiful there with shaving the beard. So the beard is obviously a big symbol of my identity, my brand. Like everybody knows me often for my beard on YouTube, etc. It's my appearance. And as I'm moving to a different OS, I'm shaving the beard, I'm leaving behind a certain identity, and there's some interesting unconscious stuff going on there. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm excited to be running a different OS because sometimes you have to take yourself away from something for a while in order to understand what you actually mastered and how things relate to other things. So I'm excited to do something completely different for a while. And the best part of this, which you're also going to be seeing, is I'm actually going to force my brother to use Linux for a while and see how he picks that up. So after I press quit here on this video, or stop the recording, I am going to wipe the system and install Bazite on here and transfer the workstation over to my brother, who is going to use the GPU and the CPU a little bit better than I have done because he's more of a gamer. So he's going to be using this and utilizing it more because frankly, I haven't played video games in years. I did want to build the system to play a few games, but I haven't done it in the end. I'm just too busy working, so I don't have time for games anyway. And the Framework desktop is a much better choice for AI experimentation, which I'm more interested in. So he's going to be doing that. I'm going to be installing Bazite on here. So yeah, I've shown you the system. This is the last video I'm going to be creating on this system. It's the last peek. The container, of course. Fast fetch. The last peek at my system. Thank you, Arch Linux, for the 14 months we've had together. Thank you for the joy you have brought other people with the course that we have created together, and the pleasure that the jobs that people are getting through by virtue of creating this system. So you have served the world well, dear Arch Linux system on Mimir. Thank you for the good times together. And now I'm going to stop the recording. And of course, I cannot wipe this system before trying something that I've actually never done before. That is to do rmrf root. Like I'm not going to type it now, but just in case I hit the enter key. But I am going to, when I stop this recording, I'm going to take my iPhone, start filming, and you will see that. And then there's no going back. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, live from Fedora Atomic Desktops. All right, well, here we go. Misha at Mimir, Arch Linux. Running on the workstation down below here. And yes, I have some cable management issues, but don't mind that. This is the one that's going to be transferred to my brother. And I am going to be working on this puppy for a while, the MSA2. But before I move, I have to do this. I haven't done this ever before in my life, not on Arch. But before I reinstall this system with Bazite for Sammy, I have to do this. So, no way back after this. Arch Linux, thank you so much for the 14 months we've had together. You've given me so much, and I look forward to returning to you when my Framework desktop arrives. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh, yes.
great. It actually rewards you for it. Okay. I didn't know that. And I'm very happy that it does this. This is actually good system design. So hold on. No reserved root. 3, 2, 1. This is so weird. Okay, well, here we go. Thank you so much for the good times, and no way back now.